Welcome to Chapter 9, Nominations and Campaigns. This is for AP Government. These notes are going to be coming from the Edwards textbook, Government in America, People, Politics, and Policy, 14th edition. These are the learning objectives from which I'm going to cover 1 through 9. By the end of this lesson, you should be able to comprehend and answer and understand these learning objectives. Alright, number 1, describe the role of campaign strategy in winning a nomination to elective office. To win an election for the presidency, it's a two-race, or a two-part game. The first game is a nomination game. You have to get the endorsement of your party in order to run for election, to run for the presidency of the United States. That's the first step. So the nomination game is the first thing to do. Get your endorsement from the political party. You're going to have a strategy in how you're going to get that nomination. The first thing you need to do if you're going to play the nomination game, you got to decide to run, declare yourself, throw your hat in the ring, and nominate yourself to run for that certain political party's candidacy. Once you do put your name in the running, your next step is to come up with the delegates. You need to get so many delegates in order to win the nomination and the overall support at the National Party Convention itself. The Democratic Party, they have what's called superdelegates, where party leaders are automatically given a certain slot of delegates. 20% of them. Other delegates come from these superdelegates, and this is only in the Democratic Party. The Republicans do not have superdelegates of some sort. And in order to get those delegates, you're going to try to win a 50-state race through caucuses or primaries, different formats, different ways of gaining delegates, and we'll look at those here in a minute here. But you compete for delegates. Super delegates include for the Democrats, and you do this through caucuses or primaries throughout the states. Once you collect enough delegates, you're going to go to the convention. And it's a big send-off for the party to showcase their party's nominee for the presidency. And you can think of it as a big infomercial for the political party itself and its nominee to inform the public who they are. Number 2, describe and evaluate the caucus and primary methods of delegate selection. So we talked about one of the steps to win the nomination game. You got to go to the caucus and primaries portion of that. So a caucus is a meeting of state party leaders, who then select who they think the delegates are going to be, who are going to go on to the National Party's convention itself. In the past, it wasn't always open to all party members. It used to be the party bosses and political machines in different states who'd be the ones who would select the delegates to go on to the convention. Today, it's open to all registered party members. The caucuses are done differently by the two parties. Democrats are more open in their caucuses, how they do it, and then the Republicans are more. It's a secret ballot, more or less, how they perform their caucuses. It's organized like a pyramid. It starts off at the local level. If you are a delegate that's selected at the local level, you can go on to the county. If you get selected to the county, you go to the state, and vice versa, all the way through to the National Party's convention. So you start locally, and you gotta get elected all the way up to the National Convention. And the first caucus is in Iowa, and it says see video here. I'm going to have the link to this video. It's a good video from CBS News explaining how a caucus works. So that's what a caucus is. Primary is basically a standard election where you just go to the poll and you vote. You're voting for the candidate, or really you're voting for a delegate that represents or pledges for that candidate of your choice. There are different types of primaries. Open, closed, blanket. An open primary allows people to show up at the polls and pick if they want to participate in the Democrat-Republican primary. So they have a choice. You can be a registered Republican. You can take you can vote in the Democratic primary if you wanted to. And there's pros and cons to that. Closed primary is only for party members. You get a ballot. If you're a registered Republican, you get a ballot for Republicans. If you're a registered Democrat, you get a ballot for the Democrats. And the blanket primary is where you have both Republicans and Democrats ballots, and you can pick. You can split your ticket. You can vote no matter what your party affiliation is, or if you're independent, because it allows independents to vote as well. Like a Republican governor and then a Democrat senator if you want to. So a blanket allows you to choose on both. You have both parties on ballot, and you get to pick that way. Primaries start in New Hampshire every year. Primaries have been increasing throughout over time due to what happened in the Democrat National Convention in 1968. Many of the party members in the Democratic Party felt like they weren't being truly represented, and the McGovern-Fraser Commission made it a mandate that delegate selection was more open, and the result of that is having more primaries where people are the party members and not actually party leaders are doing the selecting of delegates. Democrats felt like that the primaries lacked party leadership, and this is why they set aside 20% of their delegates, called superdelegates, to help make sure that the party leaders are still having a say within this process, the nomination process. Let's see. Let's evaluate these two primary caucus systems. So, disproportionate attention because of front loading, which is where states try to hold their primaries or caucuses really early in the election season. You get a lot of attention early November and February. February, December, where you have these elections going on, over almost a year prior to the actual general election itself. It makes it very long and a lot of attention put up front in the very beginning just for the nomination. And because this is difficult to take time out for politicians to take their time out from their duties to run for office, because it's such a long season nowadays, you really got to start 4 years in advance. As soon as this election coming up is over, you're going to see people already going to Iowa and New Hampshire just trying to drum up support for the next presidential election. So it takes a lot of time out of the politician candidates running for office time. Money plays a big role in it as well. If you get the big the momentum, it's going to equal more money. That's why it's a lot of candidates feel like it's very important you do well in these very early caucuses and primaries, so that they can build that momentum and gain more money, because it is a long season just to get the nomination of the party itself. Number 4, participation in primaries and caucuses is low and not representative. Not a lot of people actually go to these in comparison to the general election. More people vote during the general election than the primaries and caucuses. It's not a true representation, maybe what the political party believes who they want the nominee to be. Number 5, the system gives too much power to the media. Because of front loading, again, the parties and the parties leaders in the states are wanting to get that attention from the media, which gives them a lot more power of who they think the front runners are, and who has a good chance of winning based on these early results, which can discourage people to want to even go out and vote in the first place. Some different solutions is a national primary or regional primary, just having the primaries on one day all across, instead of having it multiple times throughout the months leading up to the election, just have it on one day. And then another suggestion is a regional primary, where it's done by region and not just all the way across, but one region, like the West Coast, and then the Midwest, and so forth. So there's some different solutions to these, criticism to the current primary caucus system. Okay, number 3, trace the historical evolution of the national party conventions as nominating vehicles for presidential candidates. So in the past, you would have a lot more drama into figuring out who was going to be the party's nomination due to multi-ballot conventions, or conventions where they allowed multi-ballots, where delegates were able to vote multiple times if there was no clear favorite. That's all changed since 1952. You don't really have those anymore. And then, there's just not as much drama since 1976. That was the last nomination where it was a close call with Nixon and Reagan. So it's not always today. We already know who's going to win by the time they get to the convention. So that's the past. Today, it's a big send-off, a big rally. Hooray! Hurrah! Look at our guy, girl. what they kind of do on each day is the first day is the keynotes. You get a big keynote speaker who's going to try to rally up and get the delegates all fired up. Second day, they start working on their party platforms, which is their statement of goals and policies that they look at from 4 years ago and revise or keep the same or make some additional changes to it or add things to it. Third day, they're going to formally nominate their candidate. They'll vote and officially declare who the nominee is going to be. And on the fourth day, the presidential candidate is going to give a big rallying speech to fire up the base. Number 4, consider the ways that high-tech campaigning has changed the nature of American politics. Alright, so high-tech campaigning. This is the second part. So the nomination is the first race, the first game. You win the nomination. Now you got to campaign for the general election, and that's the second part of this process. And it's a high-tech game. In the past, presidents just had how much money they had. They used that to go around and tour the nation and shake as many hands, kiss as many babies as they could until the money ran out. They would get on a train and visit as many towns and cities as they could, as much money as the money allowed them to. Today, because of technology and media, you don't necessarily need to go to every town, every city, shake everyone's hands. You can use the media to get your message across. A couple of things today you got to do if you're running for a presidency or any type of office. Really, you're going to need a website so people can go and find you and find out what you're about if they're interested in the first place. They can see videos of speeches you may have given and know what upcoming events are coming along, where you're talking, where rallies are. And the key thing is you got to have some type of access or ability enabling where people can donate online, which is key to gaining a lot of funds for your campaign and to help you win. So that's very key, is having online donating capabilities on your website itself. You're going to use direct mailing in today's media campaigns, mass media campaigns, where you can target certain areas on a certain issue and be very specific to try to increase people to vote for you instead of having to try to go door to door. You can just use direct mailing as a way to do that. And then the media is a way to get attention. You use the media to act with your advertising budget based on how much money you get. You use that money to strategically use your budget wisely to advertise in certain areas, and then also use media to be as free attention, because you are a newsmaker. Whenever you are going to make a rally, the media is going to pick it up. They're going to say something. They're going to put it on the air somewhere, so it's free attention, and it's good for your name recognition. You can let people know who you are and what you're about and why you're running. Number 5, analyze the role of media, play an influencing style and substance of presidential campaigns. So there's a chart that I would show it's figure 9.2. It's called the horse race versus policy coverage, and it just shows that basically media today they don't necessarily talk about policy as much as they talk about who's winning and who's ahead and who needs to do what to change their luck. So the role media plays when it comes to style, they're mainly talking more and more about who's ahead and who's winning the race compared to different policies and stances on policies from the different candidates. Next one, what's the crucial role of money in American campaign organizations? Very crucial. Money is huge. You need money to help fund your campaign, especially the media campaign, during this time of a nomination campaign race. So this is also going to be the most confusing, and at times I'm confused on how this works, but the role of money does play a huge role with this. So the Federal Election Campaign Act was passed, and what it did is it created the FEC, which is a government commission that is in charge of keeping record of how much money is being spent, who's donating, how much, to which candidate, so forth. It also created a presidential election campaign fund, which the idea is that people running for office can get public financing for their campaign. The government actually matches funds for you if you are able to raise enough money, like $5,000 in at least 20 states. If you're able to raise that, you can get matched up to $250 per individual in matching funds. Since George W. Bush, George W. Bush is the first person not to use this during the primary caucus season, this matching funds, because he was able to raise more than that. Because once you do take the matching funds, you're kind of limited in how much you can raise. Public financing, number 4, for major party candidates in the general election. So in the primary, you can get matching fund. Also during the general election, you can get matching fund. But again, it's limited on how much you receive. It's a fixed amount every 4 years. In 2008, it was $85 million that if you were from a major party, you could get that money for. Obama, back in 2000, was it 2008 now, who refused, didn't need to do that. He was able to raise more than enough money, more than $85 million, that he didn't need to take that money to help fund his campaign. It also required full disclosure, which the FEC does. It allows us, if you go to the website, you can actually see who donated what, and how much they donated for. There are limits to contribution. You can't just give as much money as you want. There are limits to this. Individually, you can give to a candidate roughly $2,000 due to inflation. 2008 was $2,300 per candidate per one time. You can do that one time for the primary caucus season, and you can do that again during the general election itself. So money has a huge role in funding it funds everyone's campaigns. If you want to be successful, you need this funding. There are some loopholes to the act. Early on, the soft money was one of the loopholes where you could give unlimited amount of money to a political party. So instead of giving it directly to the candidate itself, which would be hard money, soft money is giving the money to the party that the nominee was from, and then they could use that money for voter registration and ads and stuff to help out the candidate of their party. McCain-Feingold Act banned that. They got rid of that loophole. But then you have what's called 527 groups, which is another loophole. They're independent groups that seek to influence the political process, but are not subject to the contribution restrictions because they do not directly seek election of particular candidates. So because they can put ads out, you can give them as much money as you want, and they don't. As long as they put an ad out that doesn't say vote for this person or don't vote for this person, it's quite alright, and they're able to raise a substantial amount of money and place ads. And this little video link here I have here was one of the most influential 527 groups during the president's campaign was the Swift Boat Veterans for Truth, who placed an advertisement about John Kerry in a negative way, saying alleged that John Kerry had lied about his Vietnam War record. And so this is a 527 group that was able to hugely impact the election based on their ads that they were able to raise money for. The impact of the FEC Act made campaign spending more open instead of less, and encouraged small donations and restricted the rich giving to individual candidates. But again, there are loopholes to get around this. So small donations is how Obama is able to raise a lot of money. But the restriction of rich giving to individual candidates has been made, but there's other methods around getting around that. Instead of giving directly to the individual candidates, they have other ways of doing that. And that's the PACs, political action committees. The growth of them, so we look at the growth and their impact on modern campaigns. So the growth, ever since the Campaign Finance Reform Act, PACs or PACs have exploded. And these are funding vehicles or arms of special interest groups. Special interest groups, remember, are groups of people who have a policy that they try to push or get approved through legislation. An arm of that is PACs, of special interest groups, PACs, which is where they raise money to help fund or help a candidate get elected into office. So there's a difference between what a special interest group is and a PAC. They're a part of a special interest group, but their purpose is totally different. 2006, there were over 4,000 PACs, which can contribute over $370 million to different candidates. I have a handout that that kind of helps show you that how the different donations can be made, or contributions can be made. The impact, though, of PACs is that they help this high-tech campaigns because they're so expensive. They're able to help pay for a lot of the ads that candidates can put out there on the TV, and we are bombarded by them every day. And in 2012, both campaigns are expected to reach up to $1 billion of raising money to help win an election. That's how serious and how much money this plays into presidential nominees. Number 8, evaluate whether the openness of the American-style campaigning leads to a more democratic system or less democratic system of government. So it's really up to you if you think it's more open, if it's open or more or less restrictive a democratic system. It's more open because it does allow citizens to voice their opinion throughout the election instead of having party leaders themselves make the decisions. The citizens get to voice through caucuses and primaries who they feel like should be the nominee. An apprenticeship system versus an entrepreneurial system. Other countries, like in Europe, you basically have to work your way through the ranks within the party to get the nod. So it's kind of like an apprenticeship where you're learning your way and figuring out how you're going to climb the ladder. Where in America it's an entrepreneurial system. It's all about the individual candidate. The individual gets to decide if they want to run. The individual can raise as much money as they want. And this is good because it does allow outsiders who are maybe not well known within the party to run for office and maybe eventually win, like Clinton back in the 90s. However, the downside to this process is it's long, a little downtime. It starts, like I said, 4 years before the next presidential election. They're going to start visiting Iowa and New Hampshire, trying to get their name out there. And the whole nomination takes, it's almost a 9-month process just to get the party's nomination. So it's very long and not a lot of downtime to rest because you're multiple people who may be coming out of the woods to run, and you want to make sure that you are ahead of polls and ahead of in the media's eyes. It's overwhelming, the process itself. I mean, I feel like this campaign has been going on forever, and it has been. It started 4 years ago, and it really ramped up roughly the beginning of the year in 2012. So it's very overwhelming, and it does require a lot of fundraising. Again, this election is going to raise close to $1 billion, or if not $1 billion in campaign funds, which is crazy to think that's how much money it's going to take to try to win an election. Last slide, last objective. Assess whether or not American presidential elections lead to an increased scope or size of government. Well, because of the process, the election process we have, you have swing states or battleground states that candidates visit all the time, and they're going to tailor their message to appeal to those particular interests because they're trying to win those battleground states because they need them. And so because of this tailoring their appeal to their interests, they're going to have to make numerous promises that they may or may not be able to keep, but they're trying to win, so they'll say what they need to say to get those delegates and the votes to win. So candidates are supporting a variety of interests to secure votes from each region. Thus, because of all these promises, it does expand. It makes it easier for them to expand the size of government because they've made all these promises to different groups of people. And that is Chapter 9, Nominations and Campaigns.